Test elections independently. We're now joined by political analyst Professor Tinyiko Maluleke from our Pretoria studios to unpack the SACP's decision for us. Professor, good morning to you once again. I mean, you have listened to Uzizi Kodwa. What do you make of what he just said, saying that, well, the SACP is only saying that they're going to contest for state power, but they haven't indicated that they're breaking away from the alliance just as yet?
Well, I mean, he is telling us what we know. I mean, he's saying the most obvious thing. But towards the end of that interview with him, you had him assert the leadership of the ANC in the alliance, the ANC as the leader of the alliance. That's precisely what the Communist Party has begun to question, the ability of the ANC to lead the alliance. So I think what Zizi does is to try and minimize the psychological impact of a possible pull-out from the alliance by the SACP, but also the psychological and political impact of the decision of the SACP to contest the elections alone. It is a mammoth decision by the SACP, which is sure going to have ripple effects within the ANC. And I think the ANC will have to take account of that, come to terms with that in a manner that is much more honest than what we've just heard from Zizi now.
Let's further elaborate on that, Professor. I mean, what does this then mean? I think I posed this question earlier. What does this mean for the ANC support in the coming elections, considering that the SACP is saying now that they will try and actually convince COSATU to align with the same stance as them? Well,
let's accept that the alliance is not, it's not something that has been commanded by God. It is not an obligatory alliance, but it is one that has worked. It is one that has served all parties well until now. And if the alliance were to crumble in the manner that it is beginning to, it surely will have impact on all members, but especially the ANC. The ANC could argue that it has the people who vote, that it has the infrastructure that the other alliance partners do not have. But it is not just about the infrastructure, it's about the ideological position. It is about the psychological support that the SACP and COSATU have been given to the ANC. It's about the leveraging that the ANC has been able to do politically and ideologically. That is going to go away, and what will be left at the moment is a very shallow discussion on policy that we've had within the ANC. So I think that this is quite a serious it will have a very serious impact on the ANC if the SACP is to contest and to walk away.
All right, and any chances of them contesting the 2019 elections, Prof?
You're talking about the SACP?
Yes, Prof.
Well, I mean, they have left it open and they have left it hanging. But the threat is there. The threat is there that they are willing to do something drastic if the ANC doesn't act much more strongly and around issues of corruption, for example. I don't know that there is enough time for them to prepare, but you know, in this country, we've seen political parties emerge within a year and contest elections.
Prof, let's look at the organizational issues that were, of course, facing the SACP last year. I mean, people had to go to court. And then you look at the elective Congress where there was literally very minimal change to the leadership structure. What does this really mean as the party? Does this mean that everybody is working together in unison to try and push for that individual contestation then?
You know, for this very successful SACP conference, which spoke outright and forthright, straight. I think the low light for me has been the manner in which so many positions were, returned unopposed, especially the big positions. There must be some very good reasons why the members of the SACP have decided to do it like that, but I see it as a low light because one was thinking that there was going to be a little bit of a change and a renewal in the way the SACP is run. And I fear that something similar to what happened to COSATU might happen to the SACP. Because let's face it, the SACP, if it's going to run an election, will need a lot more energy than the energy levels we have seen from its current leadership. And one would have thought that a younger cohort of leaders would help the SACP do that. And many of us thought that the prominence that the likes of Solima Paila was beginning to take over the past few months, over the past year, was a sign that he was being prepared, perhaps, to take up some of the positions. But not just about him. There's a lot of younger people there. But, the SACP knows what it is doing. I hope that they are correct to keep the same leadership roughly going forward, but I think it's a low light.
All right, and speaking of staying with those organizational issues that need corrective measures there, Prof, I mean, what do you think? I mean, a lot of people were saying that some of the policies of the SACP need to be reviewed. They're a bit outdated, so as for them to be relevant in our modern society. So what do they need to do to ready themselves for that individual contestation?
Well, there are several issues of ideology that the SACP will have to address. The seeming contradiction between being communists and working in a capitalist environment and seemingly participating in it without recognizing the contradictions is one of the things. But I think also the question of dual membership, the fact that almost all of the members of the SACP are also members of the ANC in their own individual rights, is a bit of a confusing matter, because in the end, you're not quite sure how many members the SACP has. So I think if they are thinking of contesting an election, they would have to sort out issues such as those. They would also have to sort out the contradiction of being in cabinet while being so vociferously opposed to what the leadership of that cabinet and the leadership of the ANC is doing. And I think these are some of the things that they will have to do. And finally, they would have to really set out an efficient machinery on the ground if they are to become a political party capable of running an election.
All right. And Prof, I mean, we do know that President Jacob Zuma is out in December. Is it fair, do you think, in your view, to then for the SACP to base their exit decision based purely on the fact that they're discontent with Zuma's leadership? I mean, they've already rallied, it seems, behind Ramaphosa as the next leader of the ANC.
Well, I think they are not just talking about Zuma, the individual, but I think they are also looking ahead in terms of the influence of Zuma in the shape of the ANC leadership that may come after that, and the possible continuation of the same kind of practices that they are unhappy about. So while they may mention him as an individual, I think that they are talking about a whole set of unethical practices and lack of leadership that they fear may continue whether or not Zuma is there in person. But I think they also mean it seriously when they say he should step down.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for that sound analysis. Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, live to us from our Pretoria studios, and he was talking to us about, of course, the SACP's decision to go at the next elections on their own. NEC member and presidential contender